come to me with longing in your eyes. I have seen that look before. It is the eternal cry, buried beneath the thick folds of civilization and persona, that ancient ache for love. You speak of your desire to love and be loved, yet you are unaware of the labyrinth that lies within you, a winding corridor of mirrors, each reflecting a shadow you have refused to meet. And so I ask you, as I have asked many before you, are you prepared to face the truth of why love evades you, even when it stands directly in front of you? Let us not speak lightly of love, for it is not the trite romance of sentimental novels, nor the polished spectacle of modern media. Love, in its essence, is an alchemical fire. It is transformation, it is confrontation, it is annihilation. And yes, it is also grace, but before one can handle love, one must die. Not in the flesh, but in the illusion of who one believes oneself to be. When love arrives in its truest form, it threatens the entire scaffolding of the ego. That which you have spent a lifetime constructing your defenses, your projections for your false selves, all begin to tremble in the presence of genuine connection. Because love, true love, sees you not the mask you show the world, not the cleverly curated image that wins approval, but the wound beneath, the orphaned child at the center of your being, who has been waiting for centuries to be claimed. This is why love terrifies you. You crave it and recoil from it simultaneously. You seek its warmth, but when it draws close, you sabotage it. You distance, you intellectualize, you test, you destroy. You say you want intimacy, but in truth, you want control, you want security. You want to be seen, but only in the ways you have deemed acceptable. And so, love, that wild, uncontrollable force, becomes your enemy. Not because it has failed you, but because you have not yet become a vessel capable of holding it. In my work, I have seen this pattern repeat through the ages. The lovers who flee just as they begin to feel, the husbands who rage when their wives speak truth, the women who contort themselves into palatable shapes to avoid abandonment. These are not failures of character. They are symptoms of unintegrated shadow, and until you descend into the underworld of your own psyche, until you make a truce with what you have exiled, love will remain a tormenting paradox, always desired, never sustained. Consider the archetype of Eros, not as the frivolous Cupid of common myth, but as the divine principle of union. Eros does not merely bind one person to another, it binds opposites within the self. It is a unifier of masculine and feminine, light and shadow, conscious and unconscious. And this is the deeper truth. To love another is to confront the unloved parts of yourself. It is to gaze into the mirror of the other and witness what you have denied. But the ego does not easily surrender. It fears dissolution. It clings to certainty, to stories, to identities. And so when real love beckons, when someone truly sees you, touches the soul beneath the surface, the ego flares in defense. It lashes out, it flees. Because to remain would mean allowing the false self to die. And who are you without your story? This is not merely a psychological dilemma. It is a spiritual crucifixion. The Christ archetype is not a symbol of external salvation, but of inner transformation. The cross is the intersection of opposites, the place where the ego dies so that self, the totality of being, may emerge. And love, when it is real, always demands such crucifixion. You will know this moment when it arrives. Perhaps you already have. The person appears and something in you stirs, not just attraction, but remembrance. It is as if you've met before. The soul leans forward, but soon after, fear arises. The dreams become dark, old wounds reopen, strange emotions flood the body. You think, this must not be right. Love should feel good. But what you do not yet understand is that love reveals before it heals. It brings to the surface everything that blocks its own flow. You begin to project. You see your mother in her, your father in him. You relive betrayals that never occurred in the present. You regress, you dissociate, you control. But these are not signs of incompatibility. They are signs that the relationship has touched something primordial. It has entered the sacred chamber of your psyche, the place where the original wound occurred. And so the work begins to handle love. You must first become conscious of your defenses against it. You must track the pattern. Why do you always choose the unavailable? Why do you push away the kind? Why do you equate drama with passion? These are not random choices. They are the echoes of your early relational imprinting, the unconscious scripts inherited from ancestors and written in the body long before you had language. You must ask, without flinching, what am I trying to relive? Or more accurately, what am I trying to resolve? In Jungian terms, we call this the process of individuation, the path to wholeness. Love, when approached consciously, becomes the crucible for this process. It is not the goal, but the fire through the other. You meet yourself. You encounter your complexes. You engage your anima or animus, and slowly, through honesty, through grief, through relentless inner work, you begin to separate projection from presence. You begin to see the person in front of you, not as your savior or persecutor, but as a soul, imperfect, evolving just like you. It is here, in the ashes of fantasy, that real love is born. But this love is not glamorous. It is not immune to conflict. It does not always feel good. In fact, it often feels like work, because it is work, the sacred work of becoming whole. And so many turn away. They retreat to the safer territory of superficiality. They chase novelty. They blame the other. They say, it wasn't meant to be, and perhaps it wasn't. But more often, the truth is simpler. They were not ready. You see, love is not something you fall into. It is something you become capable of, and this capacity is forged in the dark. It is born of nights spent crying over old wounds, of dreams where the ex-lover returns, demanding, reckoning, of encounters with archetypes, the wounded child, the abandoned one, the betrayer, each offering a key to the locked chamber within. You cannot bypass this no affirmation, no technique. No lover will save you from yourself. You must go inward. When you descend, you may meet the shadow, that repository of all you have denied. It may take the form of rage, of envy, of the deep suspicion that you are unworthy of love. Do not turn away. This is the dragon that guards the treasure. This is the guardian of the gate. If you run from it, you will repeat the cycle again. But if you face it, name it, embrace it, something begins to shift. You reclaim your power. You realize that the fear of love was never about love itself, but about your own vulnerability, your terror of being known, of being seen, of being touched in places that never healed. And slowly, gently, you begin to offer those places to yourself. You parent the inner child. You speak the unspeakable. You weep the ancestral grief. And from this depth, love begins to grow. Not as a rush, but as a root, you begin to choose differently. Not because the old patterns no longer tempt you, but because you recognize them for what they are, invitations to remain asleep, and you are no longer willing to sleep through your life. You are no longer willing to call fear intuition or sabotage destiny. You are ready finally to live the truth. You have always known that love is not something to be earned or chased or controlled. It is something to be allowed. It is something to be received, but only the true self can receive it. And so the work continues. Each day you are asked to meet yourself more deeply, to listen to the body, to track the dreams, to question the beliefs that have shaped your perception. You are asked to befriend solitude, to find your worth in stillness. Because until you know who you are without the other, you will use the other to fill the void. And that is not love, that is dependency. And dependency always breeds resentment. What is required is a return to the soul, to the ancient place within you that remembers what it means to be whole. This place cannot be found through external achievement. It cannot be reached through performance. It is revealed in the silence, in the symbols, in the sacred rhythms of your own being. And when you begin to live from this place, not occasionally, but consistently, love becomes inevitable, not because you chased it, but because you became it. And those who are meant for you will recognize it, not in your perfection, but in your presence, not in your performance, but in your authenticity. They will feel safe, not because you are flawless, but because you are real. That is the essence of love, presence without pretense. Do you feel it now? The quiet invitation pressing against your chest. Not the clamor of your mind demanding reasons, but the deeper rhythm beneath thought, that pulse of knowing. The soul does not speak in words, it speaks in symbols, in the synchronicity, in the subtle shiver that moves through you when truth is near. And love, real love, does not shout, it whispers, it waits, it dwells not in the performance of affection, but in the willingness to be transformed. And transformation is never comfortable. You see, what frightens you most about love is not that it might break your heart, but that it might change your life, that it might unravel the very self you spent decades constructing to survive. Because love is not content to dance only with your light. It seeks to enter your depths. It seeks the room you keep locked, the memory you've wrapped in silence, the face in the mirror you refuse to see. It knows that your capacity to give and receive love is directly proportionate to your capacity to sit with the parts of yourself you deem unlovable. But instead, you ask, why do I attract those who cannot love me? My answer is this: you attract not what you want, but what you are unconscious of, until the unconscious becomes conscious. It will govern your life, and you will call it fate. And so, the wounded find the wounded, the abandoned find the unavailable, the anxious find the avoidant, and the cycle continues not because you are cursed, but because the soul longs for integration, even if it must reenact pain to get your attention. Let us walk then into the architecture of your inner world. Do not be afraid. I will show you what your conscious mind has forgotten, but what your dreams have always remembered. There is a door inside you. Behind it lives your inner child, not the one captured in nostalgic photographs, but the one who still believes love must be earned. The one who internalized rejection as unworthiness, the one who learned that to be seen is to be judged. And so now, even as an adult, keeps disappearing. Every time closeness comes near, that child is the root. And no matter how polished your persona, no matter your achievements, your intellect, your spiritual vocabulary, that child still lives within you, shaping your relationships from the shadows. When someone truly loves you, it is that child who trembles, not out of hatred for love, but out of terror that this too will end in abandonment. And so the sabotage begins. You pull away, you criticize, you ghost, you erupt, you call it intuition, when really it is a trauma response, wearing a spiritual mask. Until you hold that child, until you kneel before the altar of your own innocence and speak these words, I will not abandon you. Again, love will continue to trigger, not your joy, but your defense mechanism. Do you see now? You were not meant to master love. You were meant to remember it, for love is not an emotion. It is a force. It is the current that moves through everything. It is the animating principle of existence. And when you block it through cynicism, through shame, through fear, you do not just cut yourself off from others, you exile yourself from the divine within. And yet, here is the paradox. Love will not violate your boundaries. It will not force itself into your life. It must be invited. It must be allowed. And that is what makes it terrifying. Because to allow love is to surrender control. To allow love is to risk exposure. To allow love is to say, I'm willing to be seen, and I am willing to stay, even when my instinct is to run, even when my nervous system shakes, even when the old story of I am not enough begins to scream, I will stay. This is the courage that love requires, not the courage to win someone's affection, but the courage to stay present in the face of your own discomfort. Let me tell you now a dream, not mine, but a composite of many I have encountered in my work. A woman dreams she is walking through a cathedral made of glass. Sunlight pours in through every wall, illuminating her body, but she is naked, and others are watching. She wants to hide, but there is nowhere to go. So she kneels, she weeps, and in that moment, her skin turns to gold. This is the dream of the soul. You long to be seen, but only when you are prepared to embrace your vulnerability can your essence begin to shine. The alchemists understood this. They spoke of the nigredo, the blackening as the first stage of transformation, the descent, the dissolution, and so too, in love, there must be a death. The death of the false self, the death of the persona. Only then can the heart be reborn in its radiant fullness. But many avoid this descent. They prefer to live in the bright halls of idealization where lovers remain perfect, where conflict is avoided, where pain is projected. They chase the high of new connection, never staying long enough to see the real work begin. But this is not love, it is fantasy. And fantasy always collapses beneath the weight of reality. So I ask you, are you willing to meet reality? Not the one you were conditioned to expect, but the one your soul came here to experience. Because love, true love, is not neat. It is not tidy. It is not convenient. It is a mirror that shatters delusion. It is a furnace that burns away pretense. And if you are brave, if you stay with yourself through the contraction, it will open you to dimensions of joy, of intimacy, of presence that your rational mind cannot fathom. But first, the fire. And in that fire, you will meet the archetypes. You will meet the orphan, the part of you that still waits for someone to come back. You will meet the saboteur, the part that believes love is dangerous and must be preemptively destroyed. You will meet the prostitute, the part that trades authenticity for approval. And perhaps most painfully, you will meet the judge, the inner voice that tells you every time you open your heart that you are a fool. But listen to me closely now. These parts are not evil. They are not your enemies. They are survival strategies, loyal guardians of your early life, forged in moments when you had no other choice. And until you acknowledge them, thank them, and release them, they will continue to drive your relationships from behind the curtain. So you must turn inward. You must enter the dreamscape. You must descend into the cave. You must sit with your shadows until they become familiar, until they reveal their wisdom. This is not an overnight process. It is a path of integration, a path of becoming whole. And as you walk it, love will begin to shift. It will no longer feel like rescue. It will feel like resonance. You will stop seeking those who inflame your wounds and begin attracting those who honor your healing. You will stop needing to be chosen. Because you have chosen yourself, you will stop trying to earn love. Because you now understand love is not a transaction. It is a recognition, a return, a remembering, and in that remembering, you become dangerous to everything that is false. So prepare yourself. When you stop performing, the world you built from performance may begin to fall away. Certain relationships will dissolve. Certain dynamics will no longer make sense. You will grieve, you will rage, you will feel lost. But in that disorientation, is the seed of freedom, because now you are no longer living from the wound. You are living from the truth, and the truth is this: you were never broken. You were never too much. You were never unlovable. You simply learned to survive in a world that taught you to abandon yourself. But survival is no longer enough. It is time to live, and love, real love, begins here. Not in the arms of another, but in the arms you offer yourself. I sense the silence growing in you, not the silence of repression, but of listening. Something ancient is awakening behind your eyes. It is not a new idea I'm giving you. It is an echo of something you have always known. The soul remembers what the mind has forgotten. And love, though buried under centuries of confusion, was never meant to be figured out. It was meant to be embodied. Let us speak now of embodiment, because without it, all talk of love remains suspended in the air, poetic, lofty, safe. But love, when real, descends into the body. It makes you feel, and that is where you begin to falter. You mistake intensity for danger. You call numbness peace. You feel a stirring in your chest and immediately wonder, what's wrong with me? What's wrong is that you've learned to live from the neck up, analyzing, calculating, surviving, and your heart has become a forgotten cathedral. So, when someone knocks on his door, you panic. You have not prayed there in years. You do not know how to let someone in without fearing collapse. But the truth is, collapse is part of the initiation. Yes, love requires the collapse of the fortress, the slow cracking of the armor, the thawing of the frozen places, the grief that floods in when you realize how long you've been starving for something you were too afraid to touch. I have seen this grief. It is holy. It arrives in therapy rooms, in dreams. In the moment a man drops his mask for the first time and lets himself weep. It arrives in the tremble of a woman who says aloud, I don't want to be strong all the time. It arrives when someone finally stops blaming and begins feeling. It is the grief of a soul who realizes, I have abandoned myself for love, and now I must return to me. Let me say this plainly. If love has always felt like suffering, you have not yet met love. You have met your childhood. You have met your patterns. You have met your unconscious. But love is not trauma dressed up in fireworks. Love is not the ache that follows a high. Love is steady. It is deep. It is patient. It does not need to be dramatic to be divine. But you crave the drama because it mimics the storm of your past. You confuse adrenaline with aliveness. You equate chaos with connection, because that is what love felt like before: unpredictable, unstable, conditional. And so when love arrives soft and grounded and consistent, you feel bore. You tell yourself, there's no spark, but it's not a lack of chemistry. It's a lack of wounding. There is no wound for this love to trigger, and so you don't recognize it. You see now the depth of the unconscious, how even your preferences are shaped by pain. That is why self-awareness is not optional. It is essential. If you do not understand your own inner landscape, you will wander the world looking for love. And every time it finds you, you will reject it, not because it is wrong, but because you are not yet familiar with peace. So let us go deeper. Let us speak of projection, the most subtle and insidious barrier to love. Projection is the soul's attempt to complete itself through the other. You see in them what you have not yet claimed in yourself. You call it chemistry, you call it magic, but often it is simply your unconscious mirrored back to you until you know your shadow. You will fall in love not with the person before you, but with your own reflection cast upon them, and then the pain begins, because no one can carry the weight of your unlived life. You expected her to mother you, you expected him to father, you wanted them to make you feel what you refused to feel alone, but no one was sent to complete you. They were sent to reveal where you are still incomplete. This is the sacred function of relationship, not to fulfill the ego's fantasy, but to accelerate the soul's evolution. Yes, the relationship is the teacher, and often the lesson hurts. It hurts to see your neediness. It hurts to realize your anger was misdirected. It hurts to admit that you clung to someone not because they were right for you, but because they mirrored your familiar wound. But that pain, if you let it guide you inward instead of outward, becomes the portal, and love waits on the other side. Not love as possession, but love as presence, not love as escape, but love as revelation. This is the love that does not need to be chased, the love that does not come and go with someone else's mood, the love that does not ask you to be less of yourself in order to be wanted. This is the love that rises from within, the love you find when you sit in your own darkness and finally say, even here, I am worthy. Only then can another meet you there. Only then can intimacy deepen, because it is no longer built upon illusion. You are no longer trying to be loved by pretending to be someone else. You are known fully, fiercely, and from that knowing, trust grows. This trust is not blind. It is not naive. It is earned, not just through what the other person does, but through how deeply you are willing to show up for yourself. You do not trust others more than you trust you. So if you betray your needs to maintain connection, if you silence your truth to avoid conflict, if you collapse into old roles just to feel safe, you are teaching your nervous system that love requires self-abandonment. And every time you do that, your body tightens, your dreams darken, your soul recoils, because deep down, this is not love. This is reenactment. But when you break that cycle, when you say, I will not sacrifice my authenticity for attachment, something begins to shift. You grow up, not in the cynical sense of losing wonder, but in the sacred sense of reclaiming agency. You become sovereign, and from that sovereignty, you begin to relate not from hunger, but from wholeness. The most magnetic person is the one who does not need you, not because they are detached, but because they are already connected to their essence. They are already held, already seen, already known by themselves. Their love becomes a gift, not a transaction, an overflow, not a manipulation. And in their presence, you remember your own wholeness too. This is what we long for. This is what the psyche moves toward, even as the ego resists it. So So the question is not, why haven't I found love? The question is, am I willing to become the person who can receive it? To become that person, you must say goodbye to the familiar pain. You must be willing to let go of your addiction to patterns. You must be willing to lose people who prefer your old self to your true self. And yes, it will hurt, but it is the sacred hurt of rebirth, like the caterpillar dissolving into mush before becoming the butterfly. You will go through a formless phase. You will not recognize yourself. You will doubt the process. You will want to crawl back into the cocoon. But wait, stay, there is more. Now you are here, not just sitting in your chair, but here, inside the trembling mystery of your own becoming. This is the sacred moment. The veil is thin. You feel the trembling at the edge of your ribs. The soul has approached the gate of knowing. Do not rush. Stay present. You were never truly afraid of love. You were afraid of the truth that love would show you the truth of who you really are beneath the performance, beneath the perfectionism, beneath the fear. The truth that you have always been worthy. And the moment you accept that, the moment you no longer fight it, your entire relationship to love changes. You stop searching and begin seeing, and what you begin to see is life itself offering you mirrors, not to seduce or to punish, but to awaken every person who enters your orbit, everyone you feel magnetically drawn to, every heartbreak, every silence, every triggering moment. It was all calling you back to yourself, not to your surface self, but to the sacred core beneath your coping mechanisms. Yes, you may have been hurt. Yes, people may have left. Yes, you have loved in ways that shattered your spirit. But even that, especially, that was part of the alchemical process. Because if you had not been broken open, you would never have seen the pieces that needed your attention. This is the gold inside the wound. This is the philosopher's stone that so many seek in books, technique, and other people never realizing it was hidden in their own capacity to feel. And now that you feel, now that you do not run from discomfort, now that you can sit with sadness and greet anger as an old companion, now that you can cry and not apologize for it, you are ready to receive love, not as validation, but as vibration, not as possession, but as partnership, not as salvation, but as sacred reflection, because you are no longer a seeker begging for wholeness. You are a sovereign being offering your presence. You see, the truth is, you always had love, even in your most lonely moments. Love was there, whispering through your breath, pulsing in your bloodstream, written in the way you still hoped, even when your heart was weary. Love was in the way you held yourself after betrayal, in the way you kept your eyes open to beauty, even after the world disappointed you. Love has always been your nature. You simply forgot, but now you remember. Now you begin to notice love in the smallest things, the wind pressing gently against your skin, the light falling through the trees, the tears that arrive uninvited and unashamed. These are not distractions from your path. They are the path, because love, in its mature form, is not about ecstasy. It is about intimacy with everything. And so, When another soul stands before you, trembling in their own remembering, carrying their own shadows, trying in their own imperfect way to touch the divine through you, you no longer shrink, sabotage, or chase. You breathe, you stay, you see, you do not need to fix them. You do not need to lose yourself in them. You simply meet them where they are, and in doing so, you create a sacred space where real love can finally land. Real love does not scream. It listens. Real love does not perform. It resonates. Real love does not possess. It honors, and that kind of love, that quiet, courageous, cosmic love can only be experienced by a soul who has made peace with its own chaos. So if you want to handle love, truly handle it. Hold it, live it. You must be willing to meet yourself again and again. In every mirror love provides, you must ask, what part of me is still afraid to be known? You must open the door. Even when your voice shakes, you must risk being wrong, being hurt, being human, because only then can you be real. And real is what love recognizes. There will still be days when you forget, days when the old story knocks, when your body wants to run, when your mind says, it's safer to be alone. That's okay. You are not failing. You are healing. But healing is not a linear path. It is a spiral. You revisit the wound, not to stay there, but to meet it with new eyes, to bring your evolved self to the place that once broke you. And in that moment, something miraculous occurs. The pain becomes power. The shadow becomes strength. The heart, once fractured, becomes the altar of a deeper union. So let us close here, not with answers, but with invitation. Go now and love, but not as you once did. Do not love from lack. Do not love to fix. Do not love to distract. Love from wholeness. Love from awareness. Love from the place in you that knows. Even if they do not choose me, I have chosen me. Let your love be a practice, not a performance. Let it be prayer, not proof. And above all, let it begin inside you. For the love you are willing to give yourself sets the tone for all the love you allow from others. You are not here to be perfect. You are here to be present. And from that presence, a deeper love is born, not just for another, but for the totality of life itself. This is why you couldn't handle love before, but now you can